name is Ryan Statkoviak. I am continuing my co-hostless solo quest this week with Clinton on vacation, gallivanting off to the sunny beaches of North Carolina. We are continuing our fall preview series here on Inside the Pylon, talking the upstart of 2024 Indiana Hoosiers with Mr. Sammy Jacobs from Hoosier Huddle, joining us once again for the second time in 2 years to help us preview the Hoosiers. Even though, Sammy, I feel like you've been on our show about 900 times now, sir. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Show tonight has that like late night jazz show vibe with your lights in the background.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, how come you don't get vacation?
Um, that's a great question. I, to be fair to Clinton, I did kind of mail it in the immediate aftermath of the season. I don't know if it was just like fatigue from the season or if I was in existential crisis mode because Notre Dame once again let me down, but he kind of carried the show from February to April. So I think this is me paying my penance back here, but I'm kind of upset that nobody has commented. You're the first person who's commented on my lights. And I have been going out of my way to change the strip to the color of the team that we were talking about every time, and literally no one has noticed.
Oh, it is because it looks blue on my screen, but it is red and white and candy stripe. That's awesome.
I think the one there's so I have one that's like above me here, and that's kind of rainbow. So I think the blue from that is like reflecting off the back wall there. But
Oh, that's so awesome.
that's the only good thing I did with this house was I spent way too much time on these lights because I don't know, it's some kind of thing in my brain, but it's cool. I like it. The vibes down here are always good. I do like the jazz club vibe down here. It's nice and cool in the basement, nice and cool outside today. Good times. Not for you.
Not 90 degrees and 95%
Oh
humidity.
God, yeah, that was. I think we're getting that later this week, but it's been the last 2 or 3 days has been pretty nice, but the like 9 weeks prior to that, it's been awful. I'm really dreading when we get the electric bill this month. It's going to be bad because we've been
Yep.
running the AC nonstop.
Yep.
I'm so excited for this team in 2025, Sammy, because I mean, we were excited last year, and we talked a lot last year. We thought Indiana was going to be a surprise team in the Big Ten, but our definition of surprise was they're going to win a bowl game and maybe they'll sting someone and ruin their season along the ways. And it turns out they just beat the crap out of 11 of the 13 teams they played, had the best season in program history. And I don't think the season can be classified as anything other than an unquestionable success. Now, heading into 2025, I'm sure with Curt Cignetti, the internal expectations will remain high. They're going to continue to talk the talk that they showed that they can walk this last year. But have you gotten a sense from the fan base that the year one success with this team has moved the needle at all on just overall external program expectations, or is there more of a cautious optimism still with this program?
So what I've seen in the past, like under Tom Allen when they had those two good years, it was man, they still need to figure some things out, and they proved those fans right, and 9 wins over the next 3 years proved that right. But I think there's less of that this time around because Curt Cignetti's track record. He's
Mm-hmm.
won everywhere. He's won big everywhere. And this wasn't winning 11 games where you win 7 of them by a field goal or a
Mm-hmm.
touchdown. They steamrolled everybody
Mm-hmm.
except for Michigan, and they beat Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't steamroll them. But outside of the two losses, they just steamrolled everybody.
Yeah, and that's I think like the path that you look for to success because you'll talk about those teams year by year like, hey, here's your regression candidate because this team was 7-2 in one score games last year, and that just isn't really sustainable. And you just look at the course of this Indiana schedule. I mean, you touched on the Michigan game, and I mean, even then, like at the time, I think people were kind of scoffing at that a little bit. But then that was a Michigan team that finished the season by beating Ohio State and beating a full strength Alabama team in their bowl game. That was still a good, talented Michigan team that just hadn't figured out what the forward pass was at all. But other than that, I mean, we're looking at blowout this, blowout that. And I mean, some good teams here. I mean, Nebraska was certainly on the upswing last year. Washington was a good team last year and just kicked the crap out of both of these teams. And a big reason for that was the quarterback, Kurtis Rourke, the Maple Missile. a revelation last year. He returned to that pre-ACL injury form, even though he still had a torn ACL in his knees, which made the season, I think,
Yeah,
even more
was it
incredible.
was it pre ACL, post ACL, or what is it, present ACL
Yeah,
injury?
just the concurrently torn ACL. But the good news for the Hoosiers fans is they have a quarterback who presumably has two functioning ACLs this year in Fernando
Oh,
Mendoza.
I hope so.
And
Um, yeah,
that's we don't need that anymore. Let's everyone keep your ACLs, please. It's an important ligament to have. But this is a guy who seems to have an enhanced physical tool set, even from what Rourke had. Knee injury setting aside, and he's a guy who's getting some early love in 2026 mock drafts. With him at the helm, how do you envision him being able to enhance this Hoosiers attack for 2025?
uh, it's you don't want to discount what Kurtis Rourke did for this team, and his guts. Like you said, he went out and played the entire season on a torn ACL, and then he
G-
went out and
Thumb
played the
injury
rest.
too.
Yeah, the half the season he injured his thumb in the blowout win against Nebraska, which apparently IU was not supposed to score a rushing touchdown against the greatest rushing defense in the history of Nebraska football, and I think they scored 6, um, or 5 or something. So if you're a Nebraska fan and you're in my mentions, I will never ever let that down. Um, so but his raw talent is probably better than Kurtis Rourke. And there have been some people who've said that it's the best raw talented quarterback that IU has ever had, at least arm talent wise, because Antoine Randall was just special.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Fernando Mendoza is not Antoine Randall, but could he be Nate Sudfeld with a little bit more mobility? Sure. He's got good arm strength. He's proven in a Power Four conference in the ACC when he was at Cal, which still kind of blows my mind that they're in the
Hmm.
ACC.
Hmm.
Um, so we'll see. He has a good offensive line. I do think this whole number one draft pick is a little overblown. Like 12%, that's a lot. That's
Hmm.
like high.
Hmm.
That's more than 1 in 10. And there are a lot of good players and a lot of things that happen and a lot of bad NFL teams who make stupid picks at number 1 for there to be a 12% chance to be the number 1 pick going into the
Hmm.
season. But yeah, excitement over Fernando Mendoza is really high. He looks so far to have those off the field intangibles in terms of leadership in the locker room. He looked pretty good in the spring game, but again, it's a spring game.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, he looked better in the spring game than Kurtis Rourke ever looked in fall camp and spring practice. But so until the bullets start flying on the field,
Hmm.
it's really really hard to tell.
Yeah, the thing that I look at with him, and you kind of touched on it, is the proven production at that Power Four level. Because Curtis Rourke was the Mid American Conference Player of the Year in 2022 before the knee injury. But again, that is the Mid American Conference, and not to disparage my beloved MAC, but it is certainly not the same level as the ACC. And you look at the year over year improvement that he made from 2023 to 2024, his completion percentage jumped from 63 to almost 69, 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, and not really the best team in Cal either, right? It's not like we're talking about like, this is a guy who was playing with Clemson's talent or anything like that. Like, yeah, they had some good players on that roster last year, but certainly wasn't dealing with even what he'll be dealing with at Indiana this year, who is bringing back a couple of good wide receivers, a good running back, and once again went to the portal here. And I think that's a good transition to that skill position talent, because when we spoke last year, you noted that the Curt Cignetti portal philosophy was going to be that production over potential, and that certainly is ringing true with what they have brought in. Mendoza obviously falls under that, but at the running back position, you're bringing in a guy in Roman Hemby who ran for 600 yards in the Big Ten last year. Lee Beebe at UAB ran for almost 900 yards. You get Tyler Morris from Michigan, who had 250 yards last year. Jonathan Brady was Mendoza's running mate at Cal to the tune of 36 catches for almost 400 yards last year, plus Mekhi Jackson from App State, who had 750 yards last year, not to mention 2 new tight ends as well. But looking at the skill position talent that also features the return of Elijah Sarratt he is always open. And Omar Cooper Jr., who was second on the team in receiving yards last year. How do you anticipate this offense looking similar, different to 2024's version?
Probably similar, with the caveat that they'll probably move the pocket more because you do have a quarterback who has two working, functioning legs. Um, and so how that changes the offense, it shouldn't change it that much, other than that you could probably run more stuff, and change arm slots and things like that, and get guys into different spaces on the field. But I don't think they're going to go away from that RPO or PRO offense, pass run option offense that they do. But man, this skill positions, Tyler Morris is out for the year because he tore his ACL in spring practice. Speaking
Gotcha.
of ACLs, so but
Jeez.
that one happened before you talked about it. So there's
Yeah.
no
We
no
didn't speak
punt
it into
heads.
existence. Didn't speak it into
No.
existence.
But here's you want a tangible piece of evidence that IU football has changed from the administration standpoint. They went out and got Jonathan Brady after spring practice
Hmm.
to replace Tyler Morris. That never happened before. Now a lot of it is the portal and all that stuff, but never did you say, "Oh man, this guy went down. We could go get another guy who's might be just as good or better than Tyler Morris. He's definitely more productive at a lower level, um, to fill in that slot role and maybe that punt return role and things like that." So don't sleep on EJ Williams either.
Hmm.
He's coming back. Odd roster move from last year where he kind of left the team, because Sig controls who red shirts, and if he thinks he could help the team, you're not going to red shirt. So he left the team, got 100% healthy, got his year back, and was welcomed back with open arms because he wanted to come back and did things the right way. He made it through spring practice healthy. He's 6'4". We also saw that what he could do, in the last 3 or 4 games of 2023. He's a guy, if he stays healthy, might be the best receiver on the team.
Hmm. Yeah, he was, if I remember correctly, a high 4-star or even a 5-star recruit at Clemson when he came out of high school. So certainly a guy who has the pedigree there.
Yeah, he was a top 247 recruit in whatever year he came out.
Mhm. The headliner obviously being Elijah Sarratt, and I wanted to ask you specifically about him because he was, I don't know if it's fair to call him a revelation last year, considering that, I mean, he had a strong body of work at James Madison his 2 years there prior, but to be able to replicate that at the Big Ten level, nearly 1,000 yards receiving last year, what do you kind of expect from him in 2025? Do you think that there's another gear he can find and truly establish himself as one of the best receivers, and not just the conference, but in college football?
Well, he's been successful at every level. He was an FCS All American at St. Francis. He was an All, was it Sun Belt player at JMU. He ended up being an All Big Ten player at Indiana. Whenever IU plays these Group of Five or FCS teams, you always look. The skill positions are pretty even. With the ones, on a lot of the good FCS teams and a lot of the good G5 teams. Where you get beat is in the depth. But Elijah Sarratt, he's not going to burn it. He's not all of a good sudden going to run a 4.340 and run down the field. But he's an excellent route runner. He's very, very good at the back shoulder throw, and he catches contested balls. Like there was a play against Michigan where he went up, kind of caught it, landed on his back, and dropped the ball. And it was like kind of shocking that he dropped it, but it would have been like a top 10 Sports Center top 10 play. So I don't know how much more of a relevation he could be, unless he ends up being a burner that he has really a sixth gear that we don't know about. Um, but he's your go-to guy. He catches the ball. He's kind of like Cody Latimer, like mixed between Kofi Hughes and Cody Latimer, where he's not only your safety blanket, but he could also give you that big play and make somebody miss.
Another defensive side of the ball, I think for as good as the IU offense was last year, and it certainly takes a lot of the headlines, this defense was incredible last year. One of the best rush defenses in the country. And I mean, you even saw it in the playoff game. Aside from the one long touchdown run by Jeremiah Love, they held Notre Dame in check in that game. And they're bringing back a lot of talent on this team. You know, the big guy was Kamara coming back at the defensive end and edge rush position, but you have studs at all three levels coming back with Aiden Fisher at linebacker, D'Angelo Pons, and Amari Farrell back at defensive back. What or who are some names to know? You know, with James Carpenter, Jalen Walker, C.J. West, obviously the three key guys leaving. Who are some names to know on guys you expect to step up to kind of help bolster the departures from this team last year?
Yeah, I mean, you said the three guys who came over kind of from JMU, Pons, Aiden Fisher, and Alvin Kamara. Kyle Kamara.
That would be a
Alvin
hell of an add to
Kamara
this team.
Michael Kamara, and I think that's going to be the underrated thing on this defense too is that, you brought in all these transfers and everybody kind of get in your head that it's a 1-year transfer, but now you have these three All-Americans who've been playing for 3 or 4 years together, even at JMU, can only make it better. But new guys coming in. To know the names, Elijah Hardy's probably going to be the other starting linebacker. He played last year sparingly as a redshirt freshman. He went to Navy Prep, so he started his college career as a redshirt freshman. He'll be a redshirt sophomore. He'll take Jalen Walker's role. I think he fills it. Jalen Walker is just such an athletic dude. That it'll be tough to fill. But Elijah Hardy has a nose for the ball. He had a pick six last year, a pick six in the spring game, recovers fumbles, causes fumbles, and is all over the field. On the defensive line, you're bringing in a lot of transfer. C.J. West is going to be tough to replace. He ended up being a real steal in the transfer portal. But you bring in Hosea Wheeler from Western Kentucky, who's a big dude. Stephen Daly, who's coming over from Kent State, like C.J. West. Dominic Ratcliffe from Texas State. All guys who are productive and big, big dudes. And then Tyreek Tucker, who came in from JMU last year, who played a little bit, coming on, should round out that defensive line. And then the secondary, Jamari Sharp. And Rylan Gandy, transfer from Pitt, are going to fight it out for that opposite corner of D'Angelo Pons. You have Devin Boykin, who is an all-ACC player at NC State, coming in at safety or rover. You'll have Lou Moore. I think he's cleared. He's one of those JUCO guys. I can't keep up with the court cases. I can't. There's too many of them. I'm pretty sure he's cleared to play. He did participate in spring practice. He's a guy who was at Ole Miss, was at IU before that, left, came back. He could play safety or rover, but is probably better at rover. Like you said, Amari Farrell is probably the most underrated player on that defense because everybody else talks about those big three. Mm-hmm. And he might be your best NFL prospect on that defense.
Yeah, he's a guy who led the team last year 4 interceptions, so certainly a ball hawk on that back end. But talking about Hosea Wheeler, I love me a defensive tackle wearing number 0. There's something that warms my heart about that.
Yeah. I mean, 0-8, Kamara was 6, CJ West was 8 last year. Those single-digit defensive linemen, it looks so unnatural. And, like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you look like you're the 17-year-old playing Pee-wees. But, yeah, it's fun to see.
The guy leading the defense, Brian Haynes, a hot name in the coordinator cycle with the shuffling that was kind of going on with Penn State and Ohio State and Notre Dame, but he reaffirmed to IU. That's a coup for them to be able to keep him. But with the success that this unit had last season, that's the game within the game, the adjustments to the adjustments. Now that Big Ten teams have a full season of his teach tape out there, do you expect any kind of adjustments to the scheme to kind of get ahead of that, or do you think they're going to attack similarly to how they did last year?
Did they not have tape from him from James Madison? Did they not
Mm,
have
that's
video
fair.
cameras in Virginia? The G5. I know G5 doesn't have the resources, but you tell me
On
nobody
the
has a smartphone or a
well,
DVR.
we got to ask Connor Stallions about that. You think he had a lot of those out there?
Yeah, maybe he didn't send his guys to JMU. But yeah, like putting stuff on tape. It's I don't know because he's had his stuff on tape for years.
Hmm.
I do think you know you have more time to study it. Is Jim Knowles studying JMU's defense 2 years ago? Probably not, but he's now studying it to get ready for Indiana. When Indiana goes to Penn State. So I think maybe people with more um, time to look at it can find weaknesses. Everything has their weakness, but it's also the personnel of it. If nobody could replace CJ West, that's gonna hurt. You're not gonna finish with the best run defense in the country. Um, if Jamari Sharp can't step up into that other cornerback role and things like that, or if you can't find more depth at linebacker, to play behind Aiden Fisher and Elijah Hardy and Isaiah Jones, then you could take advantage when those guys need a blow. So I do think that people will look at it differently to attack. But look, the two teams that beat them played for the national title.
Hmm.
Jeremiah Love ran for what was it, a 98-yard touchdown run, and that was like the only run he had of the playoff.
Hmm.
Um, and that was because a guy misfilled the gap. And then they lost to Ohio State, who has a receiver who probably would have been a top 10 pick
Hmm.
coming out as a freshman if he would have been allowed to, and would probably be the number one pick this year, but he's a sophomore. So you'll have to wait until next year to get him. And the defense played okay. And things like that. Coaching goes both ways. Indiana can make adjustments. This is their second year looking at the Big Ten offenses
Hmm.
too. So we'll see. Do I think they're going to finish number one team in the nation in rushing yards again? Probably not. There's so many. There's 136 teams. One team's going to be half a yard better than the other from year to year.
And a lot of that schedule based too, right? You play a bunch of teams that throw the ball better and they're not running as much on you, and that can certainly impact that as well. But to kind of wrap up the conversation here today, I want to just kind of look at big picture for 2025. Obviously, the surprise playoff run last year, but to repeat that level of success in 2025, they're going to have to assert themselves against three massive tests in Big Ten play, having to travel to Oregon and Penn State, and also hosting Illinois at the end of September. Three teams that I think most people are expecting to be in the top 15 to 12-ish range when preseason polls come out. What do you think constitutes a successful campaign for this team in 2025?
Indiana's schedule is hard. All I've heard all week was that are playing cupcakes, and that and all that stuff, and that they have the softest schedule known to mankind. Um, no, in all seriousness, expectations have been raised. The Now they're we talked about it last year, and how there was a world where IU started 6-0, and then
Mm-hmm.
anything was possible. Well, it's now possible that they can make the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
You've done it, and you proved you could do it at Indiana, and I think you could do it again. That should be the expectation. Now, is going 9-3 or 8-4 a total failure? I'll take my Yankees for example. Not winning the World Series is a total failure, but even if you get there, it's a total failure. If you don't win, no, it's not that level of it. Yeah, you should be disappointed if you don't make the playoff, but if you go to a really good bowl and win 8 or 9 games to piggyback off of that college football playoff year, yeah, that's a success.
Yeah.
If you just go down the schedule on games that they should win, you're probably looking at 9-3.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 8-4. You're losing a game that you probably should win, and that's still a pretty good year. For me, again, it's not all about the playoff. I loved going to the playoff. It was a great run. Beat Purdue, beat Michigan State, keep those in-state trophies, go to the postseason is another one, and win your home games.
Mhm.
You have 7 home games this year. You went undefeated last year. Make that stadium be as intimidating as possible. If you could do that and that means you're beating Illinois. If you beat Illinois, let's say you lose to Oregon and Penn State and go 10-2, you're probably going to the playoff.
Mhm.
You probably.
Mhm.
Now, who knows what these idiots in Texas will do? Well, they kicked off into the wind too many times, and that metric, like forget it. 10-2, you're probably going to the playoff, unless there's a whole bunch of undefeated teams and things like that, which might happen. But you don't count them out against Oregon.
Mhm.
Oregon's breaking in a lot of new guys. They
Mhm.
lost their best receiver in Evan Stewart.
Mhm.
They are vulnerable early in the season. You saw them last year struggle against Idaho. Boise State should have beat them at home. Last year, Ohio State should have beat them up in Oregon last year. So, Oregon's very, very good. That is a very tough place to play. But if you're going to play them there, you're getting them after a trip to Penn State, after they go to Penn State.
Mhm.
And you have a bye week in between. Now, IU has to go to Iowa. That's one of the games you didn't list on there. I'm just so happy that's not a 7 p.m. game at Kinnick, man.
Yeah, that's a tough place to play too.
Yeah, all we know about game times is that it's not a night game, which I
Yep.
think if you're an IU fan, you're very, very happy about.
Mhm.
Because we've seen some mediocre Iowa teams just absolutely kill the dreams of some really, really good teams going there.
Mhm. For sure.
So, if you could, that stretch of Illinois, Iowa, bye week, Oregon is going to make or break your playoff dreams.
Yes.
Illinois is probably the biggest hinge game on the season.
Mhm.
They'll come in probably undefeated. IU will come in probably undefeated, and what is that? A top 15 game? Somebody
Oh,
will be in the
easily,
top.
easily.
Somebody will be in the top 10. Somebody will be in the top 15, or you could both be in the top 10, or something like that. It's going to be a great atmosphere in Bloomington. If you win that and go 4-0, going to Iowa, and you split Oregon and Iowa, you're sitting 5-1
Mhm.
with a chance to. You have some decent, very winnable games against Big Ten teams, and you have the big one against Penn State. You know, near the end of the year, we're in a place you have not won.
Yeah, we just had our Oregon episode last week, and I don't know if I'm a full-fledged Oregon skeptic this season, but I think they're kind of getting a pass at how much they lost from last year's team, and it would not surprise me if they took a step back this year. But with this Hoosiers team this year, it's kind of the old. I don't know if it's an old adage or if I'm just making something up right now, where I think it's very possible that this team is better than last year's version of the team, but the
Yep.
record just does not match that because you have Illinois, Oregon, at Iowa, at Penn State on this schedule. And that's just 4 really tough games, 3 of them being at exceptionally difficult places to be. And it's one of those where I'm with you. I don't think if you're an Indiana fan, would you like to make the playoff again, or at least be in playoff contention when you go to Happy Valley on November 8th? I think that would be a hell of a season again to piggyback off of last year. But I think that's the biggest thing for this team is you can't take a notable step back. You have to keep building that momentum forward, and it doesn't have to be, well, damn, we're in the playoff again. I mean, if you go 9-3 and you play close games against Penn State and Oregon, who end up making the playoff, and you drop another game here, then I mean, sure, it sucks, and you want to win all your games, but also, hey, that's something that you can point to on the recruiting trail to guys who are interested in the portal and say, look, we weren't a one-hit wonder. We're starting to string some stuff together here, and this is a place you want to be because you can be a part of that.
Yeah, that's where you go. The reason we went 9-3 is because we didn't have a guy like you.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what we're willing to, because it's all about money these days. Here's what
Yep.
we're willing to pay you to come be the guy to get us to the next level. Um, so yeah, you can't go 6-6, and I would argue you can't go 7-5 and say it's a continuation. That would be a step back. 8 wins might be a step back depending on who your 4 losses are. But if your 3 losses are at Iowa, at Oregon, and at Penn State, yeah, the narrative is going to turn into when IU plays on the road against a good team, they're going to lose. They're just in that tier that's good enough but not great, and that's we know the national media. That's what the narrative's going to be. But if you go 10-2, you're squarely in the conversation. 9-3 is a really, really good season. You're going to go to a really, really good bowl game that unfortunately is not the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and and that's another thing. IU needs to get a bowl win. They haven't had a bowl win since 1991. You got to get off that list. That's the solace in if you go 7-5. If you go 7-5, just win your bowl game and you get off that list. And man, to me, that's a success. Is you just get off those lists that whenever team sucks or has these droughts and all that stuff that IU has been on forever, that's a win. That's worth its weight in gold to get off these stupid graphics where, well, did you know that the last time IU won a bowl game, the Twins were really good at baseball, and they played in the Metrodome.
As someone who no longer has to listen to your team hasn't won a major bowl game since before you were born, I get it.
Yeah, where there's 2 major lists that I use on that they need to get off of. They need to beat Ohio State because that's always on there as the longest losing streak of college football, and then the bowl drought. You had Northwestern on there from the 40s. They ended that. Now it's your turn. You got to get off that list.
Well, this is going to be a fun team to follow once again in 2025. I'm excited for it. I'm super pumped that they kind of made that breakthrough last year because we were pretty excited about them heading into last year, and it felt good to be validated on that. But before we get you out of here today, Sammy, remind our listeners where they can find your work and what you guys are working on here over the next couple weeks leading into fall camp.
Yeah, so we're at HoosierHuddle.com. We're fully independent now. There is a small subscription fee. It's $3 a month, and we're running our special till kickoff, $15 for the year, which is kind of outrageous compared to the other people. But it helps us run the site. It helps us get equipment for podcasts and all that stuff. But we're working on it. We've got Big Ten Media Days tomorrow. This is being recorded on Monday. So Tuesday, IU goes. We'll get all the stories for Media Day. Unfortunately, I'm not out in Vegas where it is like 130 degrees. But we'll have all that stuff. We're looking forward to fall camp and getting boots on the ground and seeing just how talented this team is and where some strong spots are. And yeah, last year I told you this team was going to surprise people, and quietly or loudly confident about that. And this team might be more talented, like you said.
That's my hometown, Sammy, Las Vegas. I can officially say I'm from Big Ten country now.
Huh. Nice.
We are truly a Midwest college football podcast. Yeah, I guarantee you it's hotter than the surface of the sun there. You don't want to be there. It's hot. It's so hot. Oh my God, it's a dry heat at least, but you don't want to sit on your leather seats and that if your car has been parked in the sun.
I take it I lived in Buffalo for 2 winters. I take it's the same, but inversed. After a while, it's just cold. Like when it hits -45, it doesn't matter. -30 to -45, it's like it doesn't matter. It's just cold.
Yeah, it's like once it gets to 100, because there's no clouds. It's not like when you're in the Midwest and it's like, okay, well, the air temp is 80, but it's humid, so it feels like 95 even when there's no sun out. There's just no clouds, so your car is always baking in the sun. So unless you park in a tree, you could be in Target for 5 minutes. You come back in, if you touch the metal on your belt buckle, it scalds you. That's leather crazy. Seats, just a no-go. It's just, that's a good way to look at it. It's hot and it sucks, and you sweat a lot.
Yep.
Couldn't play outside during the day. That's kind of where we were at with that. But thank you, sir, once again for joining us, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in once again. If you listen to this in podcast form, you will probably be catching this on Wednesday. So we will see you tomorrow night talking Sammy's favorite team, the Purdue Boilermakers.
Yeah, they're right up there with the Boston Red Sox as my favorite two teams. Maybe my favorite team to make fun of.
Yeah, there you go. There was a
Yeah,
lot of making fun of the Boilermakers last year.
yeah, yeah. Ask you could add here. Ask them this question:
All right, I'm writing it down.
Did James Carpenter have more rushing yards in the bucket game than Purdue did as a team?
I'm gonna
And
ask it.
James Carpenter was a defensive tackle.
Yep. Yards. Van Purdue. All right, I'm gonna ask him. That's gonna be the first question. We're gonna
In the
start off on a
bucket,
high
I'm
note.
pretty sure Purdue had more for the season, but
We can't. We should not definitively state that because I don't know that that's true. Having watched 3 too many Purdue games last year, it was not appointment television.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
All right,
They
I
did
have it.
play Indiana State.
Yes, they did. They did be play Indiana State. All right, I have a circle. I'm going to ask it. Tune in tomorrow night to listen to that question, everyone. Thanks once again, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.